Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Franchise Euphoria. Josh Brown here. Today's episode is brought to you by Franchise 5. Why Franchise 5? I'm glad you asked. Growing your franchise in a slow, deliberate, and thoughtful manner is a smart way to grow. Franchise 5 helps you do this by expanding 5 locations at a time with a Zen-like focus on the geographic locations that make sense for your growth. To learn more about this, go to franchiseeuphoria.com/franchise5. That's the number 5. So franchiseeuphoria.com/franchise5. Now to today's episode. So on today's episode of Franchise Euphoria, I'm thrilled to have on Bobby Malek. Bobby's a multi-unit franchisee for Jimmy John's. He currently owns 4 Jimmy John's franchises in Florida, and he has another in development. But prior to opening his sandwich shops, Bobby played professional baseball, where he was a part of the New York Mets and Los Angeles Dodgers systems. Originally from Canton, Michigan, Bobby was also a 3-time All-American and Big Ten Baseball Player of the Year at Michigan State University. He's got a wife, Michelle, and twin daughters, Harper and Riley. And I'll tell you, this is an interesting interview for me. We were a little bit short on time, but wanted to really kind of walk through with Bobby his professional baseball career and how you can tell those lessons and things that he learned along the way from not only being a baseball player, but he was also ended up being a coach as well. Really have transitioned well for him into the franchise world and the approach that he takes in terms of the process, following the processes and systems and the team and being able to communicate well. And so I think that is a big aspect of what I appreciate about this interview and having Bobby on. So without further ado, I hope you enjoy this interview with Bobby Malek. Hello, Bobby. Welcome to Franchise Euphoria. How you doing?
I'm doing well. How about you?
Doing great. Excited to have you on the show. I love talking with folks who are in and around the franchise world, and you being a multi-unit franchisee for Jimmy John's, you're certainly that. But you also have this really cool background that you played sports and you played at the highest level. You played professional baseball. Oftentimes I know that, things you learn from sports transfer over nicely into business. So take a couple minutes, tell us about your sports career.
Yeah, I was a baseball player started in college at Michigan State before getting drafted by the New York Mets. Played 7 seasons, made it up to AAA. So I was right on the doorstep.
What'd you play? What position?
Outfielder. So
cool.
So I had a great career. Made it pretty far. Made it farther than the majority of people that go out there and play, and I had a great time doing it. Got to travel all over the country and got to see some different countries as well. And so, it was just a great experience. And then, got to coach a little bit more, kind of extend that extra couple years in the game and give back and do some stuff like that. But, then we were just kind of looking for the next phase in life, and, the business opportunity of Jimmy John's came about, and I always remembered them from college, and the late night sandwich stop, and how quality and the freshness of Jimmy John's really kind of stuck with me all those years. So just seemed like a good segue.
So in total, how long were you part of professional baseball, both playing and then coaching?
Total probably about 14 years.
And then did you realize at a certain point when you were coaching that it just wasn't something that you were going to pursue for the remainder of your career? Because a lot of people get into coaching, it's like, that's what they're going to do. And they're just going to keep. At what point did you decide that you wanted to get into business? Or was it something that just kind of came spur of the moment?
No, I think I always kind of wanted a business. It was just something that, when you got done playing, you weren't quite sure what was the next step. Coaching was kind of an easy transition. And I did that for a little bit, but I think I always had in the back of my mind that, I was ready for something else and something more. And actually started the Jimmy John's business while I was still coaching. So I kind of did both for about 2 years. And then as we started to grow the business, it became too much, and I just needed to focus on the Jimmy John's.
So before you bought Jimmy John's, I mean, did you have your eyes set on Jimmy John's the whole time, or did you look around at different franchise systems?
Of course, you look around and stuff like that, but you know, one thing that from my playing career, just being disciplined and having those routines and those baseball players are very creatures of habit. And when I got talking to Jimmy John's about just how their day is set up, and they have these punch lists that we follow and check off everything that we do every day. Some people think it's monotonous, but for me, it was just what I've always used to doing, and so it was like, okay, we're gonna slice the lettuce.
It's like getting your reps in, isn't it?
Absolutely. So you know exactly where you are during the day, and for me, it's the organized aspect of it was really what I really was drawn to.
So when you researched Jimmy John's, you know, talk a little bit about maybe the process that you went through in terms of investigating the franchise, looking into it, and then before you signed up to become a franchisee. Tell us about that process.
Yeah, I mean, I did, I think most people, go and there's other, I guess, a out third party, kind of headhunter was going to kind of position me and to give me options of what type of franchises I might do. I just didn't really fall into that category too so much. So, I kind of went off on my own, and I had a buddy that, was in Jimmy John's, and so I got a lot of information from him. But Jimmy John's does a really good job of bringing the people in to meet at their headquarters. You almost get interviewed, and you get an opportunity to interview them. And so that was really the process for me. As much as I did look at other stuff, I mean, it was really the meeting at headquarters, meeting the people, just learning the insides of the brand itself. It was a very smooth transition from my playing career to Jimmy John's.
And so you own multiple locations now. Did you start off as part of a multi-unit agreement, or was this something where you tried out one and then you just sort of grew from there?
Yeah, I just, one at a time. Once we felt like we had one figured out, or at least we thought we had one figured out, then we go to two, and, two to three, and then three to four. So we ended up purchasing the three and four. They were already open, existing stores. So we bought them. But the first two we developed, and we're working on a fifth one.
Nice. Where are they located? Where are you located?
I'm in Port St. Lucie. The first one was in Port St. Lucie. The second one was the town just north of Port St. Lucie, which is on the east coast of Florida, about 40 minutes north of West Palm Beach. The third and fourth location and the fifth are going to be in Naples, Florida, which is actually on the other side of the state. But it's such a good market, and we just had to jump on it.
So tell me about I mean, because you, at this point, when you opened your first one, you didn't have, maybe you did, but you didn't have any experience in fast food businesses, did you?
Really, playing baseball from high school to college, I never really had a real job. I mean, I did cut some grass around the neighborhood and, odds and end type things like that to earn some money, but I really never had a job or anything like that. So this was like my first real job, that I would say. So,
What was that like for you?
well, it was a little bit different than being a baseball player for sure. So,
Well, yeah, you got 15-year-olds you got to manage, right?
the coaching aspect kind of helped me a little bit, understanding how to work with, kids that are younger than you, and stuff like that, and try to get the most out of everybody. So I think that was very helpful. It would have been a little bit probably more of a challenge going from playing to being, the boss or anything like that.
Yeah, so I mean, I gotta imagine, especially, I mean, obviously playing, you're part of a team in baseball. There's just no better example of a team sport, right? I mean, there's, obviously there's individuals, but if the team is not functioning as one unit, you're not going to be very successful, and that transitions over into business, and but also obviously the coaching aspect, I think, really probably helped you out from a management perspective and being able to communicate with people and clearly communicate with people, because As you probably realized and saw, there's a difference between being a player and then being a coach where you sort of know what to do, but now you have to communicate it in a way to your players so that they understand it. And the same concept transfers over into a Jimmy John's or any business, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Jimmy John's, I mean, we need to make sandwiches in 30 seconds. So you need a team. You need your bread starter, you need your meat puller, and you need your consolidator. And everybody has a job to do. But as the manager, now you have to train those each of those individuals to do their job. And then you have to trust that they can do their job and allow them to succeed for the betterment of the store, and serving the customers in that freaky fast way. All the details are laid out with Jimmy John's, and that's the one thing I really really like about Jimmy John's is they do have a proven success rate, and everything is in the details.
What was that like for you though, going from, I mean, it's one thing and it's a challenge in and of itself to open up one franchise and be there and learn the business. And, I imagine you hired a manager right off the bat, or did you open the store with the manager?
Well, we had a manager that we ended up hiring, but I have family. My dad, my mom. They're in the store.
You threw your dad and mom onto the line.
Oh, absolutely. They're cheap labor. They love it. But we've had a good run, and luckily, in this high turnover business, we were very fortunate enough to keep a lot of our employees for quite a while. Obviously they go to college and move on in their lives, but for the most part, we've had people stick around for quite a while, which has really helped us be able to grow.
Well, what was that like for you going from one store to two stores? Because now, when you have one store, one of the obvious advantages is that you have one place to go. I mean, if you don't want to be there all the time, that's why you have a management team. That's why you're building it out. But if you need to be there, you can be there. If you have a problem or if somebody doesn't show up for their shift, you can go fill in if you're in a bind. It becomes a little bit more challenging when you add a second location because you can't be in two places at the same time. Talk a little bit about that challenge.
Yeah, for me, I think it was a challenge, no doubt about it, but it just forced you to be prepared. And it was just something that, my baseball career, you get scouting reports and you do some of your homework beforehand. And then once the game starts, it's just let it go play and have some fun and enjoy it. And I think that's a little bit like Jimmy John's. I mean, we spend 6 hours before we open prepping and doing all the lettuce, the tomatoes, the onions, and cucumbers, and all that stuff. And then once the store gets open and we're serving sandwiches, I mean, we're just making sandwiches quickly. And I think it's all about being prepared, and that's for two stores as well. I mean, now you have to do twice the work. You have to have communication with both your managers that are opening the store. You set some goals, and you get to track them. I mean, baseball is a big stat game. So is Jimmy John's, and so is a business. You're always constantly looking at your numbers, and it's not even so much just what you're doing. It's how efficiently you're doing it. So that's what we kind of strive for, and we can be better tomorrow than we were today. Then we're moving in the right direction.
Now, was Jimmy John's, when you went from one location to, your second, your third, your fourth, were they involved? I mean, obviously they have to approve that process. And I know the process you have to go through to do that logistically and legally and everything. But were they involved? I mean, was there additional training or additional assistance to help you so that you didn't feel like you couldn't manage these multiple things, at least at the outset until you kind of got the hang of it?
Well, I don't know if it was necessarily any more additional training, but the level of support Jimmy John's gives you throughout, even if with one store, is tremendous. We have somebody come in every 3 to 6 weeks to come in and help us as a support visit. We can call it headquarters at whenever we want, and if we need something, assistance, and there's constant communication in that, and the training that they give you to open the first store. It goes through every aspect of your day. I mean, it goes to turning on the oven in the morning we have to sign off on it, and then to closing out the computer at the end of the night. I mean, so it's all in the details. And for me, I think with that support system that they've established, it's allowed us to grow to more units, and you have a roadmap of what the day is supposed to be like, and the expectation is set and written down, and you just go and follow it. So I think in that terms, I think that is the biggest reason why we were able to go to multiple locations and not really be there, for every aspect of the day.
So give me an idea of what your typical day is like, because I know people listening who are contemplating becoming franchisees. There's a lot of misnomers out there, and I always try to dispel them that, just because you're buying a franchise doesn't mean everything's done for you. You still have to run a business. Talk a little bit about what your typical, if there is such a thing, you know, day is for you with these numerous locations.
Well, right now, I'm still learning how to run 3 and 4. We've 3 and 4 came about, at the beginning of the year. So there's no typical day, but I do think one advice I would give everybody is you have to be present. You have to get to your stores. You have to allow your employees to see you. I think Jimmy John's promotes, leadership by example, taking the toughest task. I mean, so your employees that just got hired, they need to see you, and they need to see you working. So I make a point to be in my stores throughout the week. Obviously, I can't get to all of them every single day, but I'm there a couple times a week, and going around various stores and just being present and talking to them, and communicating with them and finding out how they're doing, and seeing if really for me it's taking some of the burden or stresses away from the managers that are at the locations each day, whether that's calling the AC repairman, or we had a cold table go out last week, and you're just fixing things, making sure that they have everything that they need to be successful.
Now, I know that there are many challenges in any business. What are some challenges that you've had to face? Because I think it's instructive for people to hear that and understand that, and how have you overcome them? What are some of the things that maybe you didn't anticipate that it's like, okay, well, I got to deal with this? Because I think that happens a lot more than people think in franchise systems.
Well, I mean, I think I touched on it a little bit. As much as we've been successful in keeping our employees for longer periods of time, it's still, when we bought these 2 new stores, you know the employees are the reason that your stores are successful, and they're your constant biggest issues sometimes with turnover and stuff like that, and training. And it's really about just spending some time with them, teaching them the proper way to do things, supporting them so they feel like you're there for them and you care. And because then they'll show that to your customers, and then it's just the customers appreciate that, and they come back more frequently. But people is the biggest you know factor in this business.
I mean, it always is, right? Always in the restaurant business, whether you're, sit down, fast food, fast service, quick service, whatever you want to, whatever type, it's always a constant challenge. I don't mean that in a negative connotation. It can be at times, but just a challenge with, you've got a very fluid nature with a lot of the workers there,
Absolutely.
that come and go, and some stay, some don't. Even with management, you got to deal with that. Got to deal with that as well. Tell me what some of the things you do, because obviously in the sandwich business, there's a lot of competition. I got to imagine around your stores, there's probably several options that people can go to. What do you try to do to continue, in addition to just the brand itself of Jimmy John's? But are there things that you do as the franchisee, as the owner, to kind of go that extra step, go that extra mile to help keep people coming back and feeling like, if I'm deciding between this store and that store, I'm going to Bobby's store?
Well, I for me, I'm still a franchisee, and I had zero experience in this business prior to Jimmy John. So this is the only thing that I know. But what I do know is Jimmy John's has been pretty successful since 1983. So I'd be foolish if I tried to deviate from their success. So I really just try to replicate, what they train and what they preach. And, it's love, hugs, and smiles. It's, treating your staff right. So then they treat the customers right. And it's that never ending cycle. And, just try to excel and be the best that we can each day. And that's what it is. And there are going to be bumps in the roads. There's going to be days where you see some challenges that get thrown in your face. And it's all about the way get back up and persevere. And, that's, I've had 4 strikeout days in baseball, but there's nothing I can do about that. It's in the past. We just got to wake up the next day and we have another game to get ready for. And that's kind of the mindset that I've kind of taken with Jimmy John's. Is some days we have really great days. Some days are very smooth, or most days are very smooth, but some days, you have some challenges and you just have to get back up, get back to the basics and follow the playbook.
Yeah, and I think that you're from your background, it seems like it's a natural good fit because again, you're used to playing as part of a team. You're used to playing a role. You're used to following a process and a system, and that transitions so well to the franchise world. And I think it's also really impressive that a lot of athletes, when they retire, they really end up not doing much more with their lives. So I say kudos to you for having the wherewithal, the planning, the ability to transition from a sports career into, from all accounts, looks like a successful or budding success of a business career. So kudos to you for doing that because that's hard to do.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of work, but it is enjoyable. I mean, it really is, especially when you do keep those people around or they go out and they come back, after they gone to college and they come back to see you. And it's the relationships that really matter at the end of the day. And to see those things develop and from a business, that's awesome.
So if folks are down in Florida, they need to come visit you, right? They need to come get a sub.
Oh, absolutely. Port St. Lucie, Fort Pierce, or Naples.
That's fantastic. Well, thank you, Bobby, for taking a couple minutes out of your busy day. I know you're a real busy guy, and I appreciate you coming on. And I have no doubt that the knowledge and information you shared is certainly going to help some folks who are tuning in. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
Thanks for being with us today on the Franchise Euphoria podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to go to iTunes and provide a review. Also, please remember that although Josh Brown is a licensed and practicing attorney, nothing contained in this podcast should be construed as legal advice, because it is not. The information contained in this podcast is general and educational in nature, and none of it should be relied upon as legal advice. That being said, if you have questions for Josh and would like to contact him, please email him at josh@franchiseeuphoria.com. Thank you so much for listening, and we hope you tune in to our next weekly episode.